Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to what is probably a bad idea. A late night stream on Christmas Eve of a movie I like very much, but in retrospect, I probably shouldn't be doing this on YouTube, and more to the point, probably not on Christmas Eve. In addition to that, I want to apologize to a lot of people who thought we'd be starting earlier. A lot of the advert says that it was going to start around 8:30 California time, roughly 11:30 in eastern areas, but I completely forgot about that. And here's the thing. I'm not a professional streamer, and more to the point, this is a very hodgepodge um, dog and pony show here. So I know a lot of people like to kind of yell at me for various things, but quite frankly, I don't give a rat's ass. Um, Speaking of not giving a rat's ass, we're watching a movie that a lot of people seem to really hate. And of course, being the strange outcast and eccentric weirdo that you have to have an acquired taste for, I happen to like this movie quite a bit. Now, unfortunately, the holidays did get in the way along with real life and, the typical same old, same old. Anybody who tells you that this is not a stressful and busy time of year is a liar, and they can go to hell for all I care. Or worse, just deal with Christmas relatives, both the ones that agree with them and the ones that don't, because they're difficult either way. Because of Christmas. But anyways, um, I totally forgot my train of thought right now. Yeah, I am a bit on a little on the angry and cynical side. But I really did want to do more research about this, but a lot of things got away from me. And quite frankly, like I said, this is a very amateur style series. It doesn't really matter if I get everything just right and whatnot. So I'm not going to panic about it. You shouldn't panic about it. And this pre show chatter is going to be fairly short because I'm going to save a lot of my thoughts about this movie when we're watching the movie. Now, I did something similar a couple years ago with a live watch of Godzilla vs. Hedorah, but I don't think I did it this late, nor did I do it on Christmas Eve, even knowing that it is sort of a tradition to revisit Godzilla vs. Hedorah. And I think the minute I'm done with Message from Space here, I am going to go cozy up and maybe watch Godzilla vs. Hedorah, although by the time it'd probably be past midnight. Not that I really care anything. I can do whatever I want. But still, though, I hope you're all doing well. I know that in addition to the Christmas stress, this is just a bad time of year. The holidays, when it comes to money and saving money, you either have to buy gifts or you get yelled at, or you don't buy gifts and you get yelled at. Landlords and similar individuals in positions of power will raise your rent or screw you over, especially if you don't buy them a special gift. Or you're forced to deal with family members, especially those who, yeah, let's not get political tonight, but let's say hello to our first person in chat, Random G Fan, 1942. I happen to still be up. I see how long I'll stay up. Maybe around 1:10 I'll call it a night. Cool. And then we'll see what else. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I meant to do this a lot earlier, but I totally screwed up on the time. But enough screwing up. I think, for the sake of everybody, we're just going to go straight into it. Now, I'm doing something I've never really done before, and that is kind of showing the subtitles to tonight's movie. So that way you can kind of keep along. But there are some watch links. I would highly recommend the temporary one, and it should say the 40-minute mark or the 1 minute and 40-minute mark, but definitely read before you get to that. And it's an subtitled version of the movie that's available on Twitch. And last time I checked, Twitch does not exactly have commercial breaks, especially on my channel, but we will see what happens. So yeah, let me just do a quick technical thing here, just to make sure. So you're going to be able to see the subtitles at the bottom, and I am going to keep the volume a little on the low side. But yeah, I'm sorry about this, ladies and gentlemen. I meant to get this done way, way, way earlier. So, okay, so let's see what we can do. All right, display. Okay, a little bit of a hiccup with the... This is the part where I take care of all the technical mumbo jumbo. And I'm doing this all by myself, so there is not going to be any guest stars unless somebody in the chat shows up quickly. But yeah, for the most part, this is just me. So, but yeah, I'll do my best to take questions from the audience, and then we will see what we do from there. So, okay, subtitles are ready to go. We're going to see how this goes. All right, just going to raise it up just a little bit. Okay. Hello? Okay, I think we're good there. All right. Hold on. Things did not go too well here. Hold on. Okay, I'm ready on your ends, so to speak. And let's go ahead and do this. I'm sorry again, sorry for all the technical goof ups. But yeah, this was a really bad idea. Shouldn't be doing this at this time of night, on this time of the year, on this date, upon this hour, upon this minute, upon this second. But let's watch 1978's Message from Space. I doubt I'm going to be a very informative commentary, so this is more of a personal thing. Go ahead and chime in the chats, if anybody, and then we will discuss the movie as it goes along. Best I can. I'll probably end up doing an even better audio commentary, if not a podcast about this movie. But yeah, this is not going to go well. So, all right, on the count of 3, get your movies ready at the mark at the beginning. Or if you're watching the subtitle version, one of the full movie links if you have ad blocks. But yeah, I recommend you do the first link on Twitch. I screened the movie earlier this morning and cut to the mark that is located within the Twitch stream. Let me go ahead and double check that. I got as slow as a snail here. Come on. Come on. Yeah, hi. I hear me. Okay, screw you, me. Brayton, it was a great idea. My idea. Yeah, sure, Brayton. But yeah, let's see where we go. Brayton is in the chat, so he probably might give some colorful commentary. So yeah, go to the temporary movie link at the for crying out loud. I screwed up again. Jeez Louise. Okay. Oh, fudge. Alright, you're going to see the subtitles. Just try to put it together on your end. Sorry about that, everybody. Alright, so yeah, let's just go ahead and get this over and done with. Now, we're already 13 minutes in. Yeah, 13, lucky number. So yeah, let's get ready. Here we go from 1978, Message from Space. And we're going to start in 3, 2, 1, play. Alright, so Message from Space is often derided as being nothing more but a ripoff of Star Wars. And let's face it, in the history of filmmaking, which has always been a strange mix of calmer and creativity, of course it's a ripoff of Star Wars. However, it's a little more than that. First off, it is a sci-fi take on a famous Japanese mythical tale, the novel The Heikiden. I'm probably saying that wrong, and hold on. Wait. Yeah, which is a famous story from Japanese mythology, and it was an early novel which basically talked about 8 heroes from different walks of life who are gathered together to stop an evil samurai lord and his mother, who have basically ruined the land. And the movie famously, perhaps one of the most famous or readily available versions of the film, was directed by the director of this film, Kenji Fukasaku, who is only really known these days as the director of Battle Royale. But he's done many films, war films, science fiction films, and most notably gangster films. This would be his second major science fiction film, the first one being The Green Slime from '68, another childhood favorite. But it is based on the Hikkenden, and he would go on to direct the movie Legend of the Eight Samurai, which is a more faithful, if somewhat more romanticized version of the original tale. So yeah, he revisits the same story twice. Are we at? No, we're not at the part with exploding grandma Brayton. So, all right. So, how did I first come across Message from Space? Well, TNT needed to play another movie all the time outside of Beastmaster, and that movie turned out to be Message from Space. Growing up in the 90s, okay, to be honest, I was born in the 80s, but my experience and influence or exposure to Japanese science fiction, fantasy, and just fantasy films in genre was shortly around 1990 with, of course, the New Year's Day Godzilla Marathon on my local Channel 13. But then after that, thanks to a wonderful cable package that my dad was able to get for the whole family, we were able to check out many other science fiction programs and movies that throughout the early 90s used to play all the time on television. I also love the fact that back then you could turn on the television late at night and just find any kind of bizarre or interesting movie play. Now, granted, many of these films were considered B-movies or failures that nobody really wanted or to deal with. But it was still kind of very interesting. You know, you just turn the TV on, you find a weird, interesting new movie, and sometimes you find some new favorites. And that was the situation Message from Space, because I discovered that both TNT and TBS, shortly after I discovered Godzilla, were playing a lot of science fiction and monster movies, and that's when I was first discovered Monster Vision. And one of the first marathons they did was made in Japan. Now, granted, this was the early 90s. Japanophobia and American pride was all over the place, for better and obviously for worse. And as such, the commercial and theme for Made in Japan was not at all respectful. It's like, yeah, there was all these amazing special effects with all these major explosions and models, but the narrator was still going like, tonight on Monster Vision, we go cheap from across the sea with Made in Japan. And while I know it was meant to be kind of comical and silly, it's a little insulting, especially when you consider this movie is actually pretty well produced, all things considering. Message from Space was one of the first movies to come on Made in Japan, and in that commercial, I recognized some of the monster movies, like Mothra, which I was previously exposed to through the Paramount VHS tape release of the movie. I think it was Paramount, it may have been a different company altogether. But Message from Space was definitely one of the more unique movies that were featured in the commercial. There are all these like weird samurais, you know, stabbing each other in the forehead with laser swords. And it's like, what's that about? So I decided to watch Monster Vision around 5 p.m. my end, because we were on the Californian coast, and Monster Vision was aired in New York at the Eastern time zone difference. So for them, 8 o'clock was my 5 o'clock. And came on this movie, and I was instantly hooked with the opening with that beautiful you know, that gorgeous music. The music, by the way, again, I'm reading off, is from Kenichiro Murioka, who, while there is a couple of like more contemporary disco music going on in this movie, because it is the late 70s, and much like how antiquated a lot of 1950s science fiction films were, both in America and abroad, they would assume that the fads and trends of then would survive into the future, not realizing that the future just gets worse and worse and worse, and we can never predict how bad it's going to get afterwards. But no, the orchestral music throughout this movie is utterly beautifully and well done, and you might be able to hear it a little bit, if not barely. But yeah, I'm trying my best to be as safe as possible as far as not getting us copyright problems. But I will. There, I'll put it just a little bit there so you can have some idea what's going on. I'm going to read some quick comments here. Random G Fan says, I can't stop thinking of Space Beast Man. Oh yes, we'll get to Space Beast Man in a little bit. And Brayton has reminded us that Fukasaku's other major science fiction film, Virus, is a thing. I've seen Virus, and it's weird. Both Message from Space, Virus, are two movies that were done with international audiences in mind. And while Virus is not a bad movie, it's definitely worth checking out. I would say I think Message from Space is more of the crowd pleaser. But we'll go more into that as the movie goes on. Right now, we are checking out the film's Villains, the Gavanas. But we'll talk about them in a little bit. Let me just go in with the introduction of this movie. So yeah, I was very much entranced with the opening of the film. And I think this was the first time I saw a Japanese science fiction film, or fantasy film, I should say. Tokusatsu, which is a term used for just special effects fantasy. Live-action special effects fantasy. For those who don't know. But that can apply to pretty much anything. But as far as this conversation goes, it goes for this whole subgenre of Japanese science fiction fantasy, and even to an extent horror films. And I think this was my first time seeing something quite on this level, on this scale. Granted, being a child of the 80s, you saw Saturday morning cartoons all over the place. And of course all the high concept films of the 1980s, which was all over the place. But even then, I don't think they would go full into just how the insane comic book nature that movies like Message from Space and other contemporaries of the era would do at the same time. So yeah, and also, it's like, as you see on screen right now, you have a model ship, antiquated in its design. It looks like a sailing barge, but it's still very beautifully designed and executed. And our heroes are trying to escape this planet to find the 8 warriors chosen by the Abi Seeds. Holy objects that might just look like walnuts, but are actually tinkers of fate, for lack of a better term. And the Gavana's main spaceship, which is a very beautifully designed spaceship. It's like, well, actually, there's better looking spaceships, but this one definitely looks like something that could ram you if it wanted to. So Message from Space, yeah, the movie was made with international audiences in mind, and there was some thought to actually kind of rip off Star Wars a little bit. I know that there's been stories floating around, and forgive me for not doing research ahead of time, that the filmmakers had to basically check out Star Wars during a trip in America and immediately come back and start doing work on it. But the truth was something else was going on in Japan around the same time, in the 70s. Unlike America, which had a big space race during the 60s, during the Cold War, that affected its fiction immensely, both in film and in television, comic books, and just the zeitgeist in general. Japan was never really much into the space race, and I guess you can make a lot of arguments that the reason we were so big about it in the 50s and 60s was again tying to the Cold War. Films about Americans making it to the moon was as much propaganda as it was just science fiction adventurism and romanticism. And that's the key word, romanticism, because Japan never really got anything like that, despite some earnest attempts to do space or science fiction related films, most notably The Mysterians, Battle from Outer Space, and a little later The X from Outer Space, although that film may have taken the romantic side a little too much, with the monster kind of taking a back seat to just the kind of drama and how cool is this moon hotel going on. And I know that the Ultraman shows from the 60s, particularly the latter half of the original Ultraman, most of Ultra 7, and a quasi-spin-off, but was named Captain Ultra. Not exactly an Ultraman series, but is kind of connected to the franchise indirectly. Dealt with space elements immensely, but as far as just compared to the Americans' fascination with space, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then Space Battleship Yamato in the early 70s hit Japanese television. Now, like a lot of anime from the 70s, it wasn't very successful on its initial run. But a theatrical film version of it turned out to be really successful. And from that, the series got re-aired. Again, I'm not a complete expert, so this is the best of my knowledge. I would love to do a more proper commentary in the future with real experts. I know my friend Kevin Dorndorf has shown interest, and it would be nice to get some friends who actually do like this movie and have things they want to say about it in there as well. But from what I understand, Space Battleship Yamato, which was the story about humans from Earth fighting against an intergalactic empire, actually rebuilt and resurrect the battleship Yamato into a proper spaceship to try to go on a quest and find the heart of the evil empire. And it is definitely a space drama because we learn more about the villains aren't all bad. There are some sacrifices and tragedies met along the way. And that was from Luigi Matsumoto, who basically was the king of space operas or space romance, who helped begin the space romance genre in Japan in the 70s. He also created Captain Harlock, Queen Esmeralda, I'm getting that name probably wrong, and his most lighthearted series, Starzinger, which was a science fiction take on Journey to the West, but with cyborgs and aliens as opposed to mythical gods and demons. That series was brought over to America as the barely seen Spaceketeers, replacing Journey to the West with the Three Musketeers, as you can tell. But that series was also a big influence on me because it, like Message from Space, it definitely inspired a lot of my original works and some of my love for strange, colorful science fiction. Yes, there was Star Wars. Star Wars was obviously the superior series, and as we'll see, it takes a little while for Message from Space to get going. Problem with a lot of big-budget 70s movies from Japan, I would have to say. But Leiji Matsumoto, and I hope I'm getting that name wrong, he's perhaps best known today for helping Daft Punk make their Interstellar animated film, which is a fantastic 1-hour animated film with the music and the beautiful animation and character designs. But yeah, his various works definitely inspired further works to be created, and suddenly in the 70s it was nothing but space romance, the space romance boom. You got shows like Space Cobra, I forgot its full name, I think it's Space Cobra or something like that. Oh yeah, I'm so unprepared. The Dirty Pair novels about a group of beautiful agents who are actually more disastrous and dysfunctional than James Bond would ever be in all his movies combined. That got turned into an animated series as well as a popular manga and a series of illustrations. Space was kind of briefly touched upon with some of the Godzilla and Gamera movies, but I know that the Ultraman shows and tokusatsu in general would try to touch upon it. Eventually leading to very space-heavy series like Starfleet, also known as Bomber X, as well as the spin-off The Message from Space, Galactic Wars. And there was like a lot of other animes, like Go Nagai did a giant robot anime, UFO Robo Grandizer. I probably got that one wrong. Sorry about it if I did. And of course, that would also lead to the Gundam franchise with Mobile Suit Gundam, as well as its unrelated predecessor, Runaway Fortress Ideon. Like I said, I'm getting all these wrong. But yeah, Message from Space was not only inspired by Star Wars, but very much a part of the big space romance trend in 1970s Japanese fiction. And it's kind of funny because when Star Wars did eventually come onto the scene and did get to Japanese theaters, from what I understand, Message from Space was made a couple of months before Star Wars was officially released in Japan. But by the time Star Wars did come to Japan, it was less of revelation. It's like, oh my God, look at this. No one's doing anything like this in Japanese cinema whatsoever. And it was more like, hey, look what the Americans did. They did their own space romance. Cool. And the special effects are a little better. I'm joking about that last part because, special effects can look cheesy or cheap, but as long as they're executed with flair and dynamics and they just look beautiful and you can appreciate the artistry, I think you can definitely forgive it. Currently, as I'm speaking, we're at a weird disco bar in the future where there is bisexual, semi-nude dancers on stage. Something I never realized when I was a kid. I thought they were all ladies, but yeah, there's a couple of guys in there too, so, more credit to them. As well as poorly designed robot waitresses. Like I said, the movie, there's a lot of things about this movie I like, but it definitely is a product of its time as far as trying to imagine what things would be like in the future. But who knows, give it time. We'll probably return to disco once we're done with whatever is going on with AI boxing Paul or something. Brayton says, first time I saw this with you was indeed the scale and ambition, if not the execution, in with its effects, particularly the miniatures. I did find it remarkable and imaginative. This space police chase is quite exciting, says Brayton. And then Random G Fan says, I really want a manga crossover with a ton of tokusatsu villains like the Dark Star Alliance from the 80s Mecha King Ghidorah story article. Oh, yes. Another thing about the, there was also attempts to try to do more Godzilla movies or Godzilla media that was related to space. I know A Space Godzilla was going to be this insane intergalactic fairy tale done with stop motion that never got off the ground, but was repurposed as a short story. And contrary to popular belief, it is not to be at all mistaken with the Godzilla vs. the Space Godzilla from 1994, which by all accounts is a completely unrelated story, similar title notwithstanding. But there was sort of like kind of magazine stories where Godzilla would battle an alliance of space aliens and whatnot. And of course, I guess the overuse of aliens in the last couple of Godzilla films, particularly Godzilla vs. Gigan and the last two Mecha Godzillas, were a little inspired by the big space romance. Just a little bit, though. Brayton says it's one of the foreign Star Wars knockoffs that are cheap, but not cheap in its ideas. And the execution does skate by well. Oh, the execution does skate by well enough that looks good, sounds good, and there's enough to its world to distinguish it from the rest of the knockoffs. That is true. I think it's kind of a similar situation with Star Crash. The movie itself, yeah, it was a cash-in for Star Wars because Star Wars was big. But since they had no... I remember the director and writers of Star Crash had no access to the movie itself, but they had access to the novelization. And Louise Kotze, the director and main writer of Star Crash, was such a fan of classic science fiction that it became a unique pulpy pastiche of science fiction. Sort of like how Message from Space takes a lot of elements from contemporary anime and manga and science fiction stories and mixed it with the ancient legend of the Hekidan. Again, I'm probably saying that name wrong. And it doesn't help. Oh yeah, there's an article from Cool Ass Cinema I could probably bring up, but won't be able to find it anytime soon. Okay. So the tale here is that the Yabi people, whose beautiful green world has been long destroyed by the conquering Gavanas, silver-skinned samurais from outer space, have sent out basically 8 magical seeds, the Yabi seeds, who look like orange glowing walnuts, to find various heroes who will ultimately free them and save them from the Gavana's tyranny. Now, weirdly enough, none of these people at first glance seem to be the right kind of people you want to be helping save anything. We have a couple of what are basically the space equivalent of dragsters or drag race drivers. You have what is basically a very shady, almost Yakuza-style toady. A rich, spoiled girl who occasionally does intergalactic drag racing. And who else? Oh yeah, a drunken, embittered military general played by the great Vic Morrow. His plucky robot sidekick, and several other weirdos we're going to be meeting down the line, some a little more capable than others. And I think that's one of the big sticking point with this movie, is that there are no real good heroes. Like, why would these Yabi seeds pick this group of particular losers? But if you've watched the movie as many times as I have, you start to see things that maybe you don't see the first time around. Because Jack, the aforementioned intergalactic semi-comic relief, but rather nasty gangster, not as bad as some of the roles the actor has played in other Kenji Fugasu movies. He actually does kind of play a big role in a weird way, but I'll get to that when the time comes. Now, weirdly enough, the movie is also kind of an excellent example of something that's rarely done in fiction. It's the destiny trap. These people are chosen by destiny to become great heroes, but they don't want to have anything to do with it. And not only do they do that hero's journey, a cliche, of denying their destiny, but they actually end up inadvertently being caught up into it, regardless how much they run away from it. Something I don't think I've really seen in most other American films. And if they do, it's pretty subtle enough. Though, again, I've seen this movie so many times. And here are heroes, well, our protagonists, I should say. They... Okay, I should start using names for these various characters. Just give me a moment. Alright. Like I said, I came here so ill-prepared. And the internet has almost nothing good as far as decent articles. There used to be a lot of good articles, but a lot of them have gone to the wayside. Okay, so, yeah, amongst our cast is Vic Morrow as General Garuda. He's not in this scene right now. What we do have, however, is Peggy Lee Brennan as Mia, the aforementioned spoiled rich girl, who actually ends up becoming kind of the unlikely heart of the movie when you consider a lot of the things she does for the story. We'll get into that a little later. You have Philip Kasnoff as Aaron, and who's one of the Rough Riders, which is basically a term for intergalactic drag racer. The beloved, at least today and here in America, Hiroyuki Sanada as Shiro. Aaron's a lot more optimistic fellow Rough Rider. That's a terrible name, by the way. I know people are going to make fun of that later. That's what they're using. All three of them, along with... oh, where is he? Oh, he's not even in it. Okay. Oh, apparently Jack doesn't get mentioned. Okay, on to Wikipedia. Let's see who the cast is there, if they have anybody. Yeah, and then you have Masami Okabe as Jack, the shady friend of our heroes, who is basically kind of a toady for intergalactic gangsters. Which probably looks why I think some fans have comically referred to his outfit as like Bruno Mars on a very fashionable day. They are there. Okay, the three males need money, and Maya has agreed to giving them money if they help get some space fireflies, which ultimately turn out to be, I don't know if it's ever made clear if they're actual life forms or it's just space junk and they're just too stupid to realize it. You know, it's like when you're dealing with somebody who is a friend of yours, but they're not very smart, so they insist that they can create the primary colors from like green and orange, which doesn't make sense because the primary colors are the colors in which all other colors are made of, so you can't create blue from orange and green, but they insist on it anyways, and you just you just oblige by it, or you just humor them even though you know it's going to go nowhere. I think that's what's going on with that scene. But ironically, in doing so, in being in this rather dangerous area to find these space fireflies, they come across the ship of Princess Esmeralda of the Jerusians and her bodyguard slash longtime friend Yuroko. Esmeralda is played by Itsuko Shihomi, while Makoto Sato is played by Japanese character actor. Yuroko is played by Japanese character actor Makoto Sato, who, if you're a Toho monster movie fan, he usually plays like a very usually tough guy roles or unsavory characters. Although he did, oh darn, I wish I knew the movie where he actually was the lead hero, but unfortunately I can't really find that right now. I think it's something, yeah. I can't find it, but there's one movie where he does play a guy in it. He's actually really good in it. It's just unfortunately, Wikipedia is not giving me anything here. Alright, so this thing needs 10 million Firefly songs to be playing. 10 million Firefly songs to be playing. Now, after rescuing Yuroko and Esmeralda from their doomed spaceship, they are at basically their really crappy camp on the moon, I guess. And in doing so, they accidentally come across Garuda and his robot Beba 1, who are basically bumming it there. So So yeah, already Destiny is bringing them together, but as we'll see, they'll quickly reject it soon. And even though this was a big budgeted movie, there is sort of a lot of limited smaller sets and outdoor areas that was very common of Toei Productions. Now, Toei Productions is considered the biggest entertainment or television program company in Japan. In fact, almost every anime and television show you love from Japan is connected to Toei Productions in one way or another, but because they don't have the American status of doing the Godzilla movies, and indeed, while Toei Productions has released and done many films, they barely touched upon the world of kaiju. Although a lot of Japanese superheroes, most famously the Super Sentai, its American spin-off Power Rangers, Kamen Rider, Sailor Moon, One Piece, Toei Productions is somehow behind it. And this was, from what I understand, Message from Space was one of their attempts to try to make a big budget movie for international audiences. They previously tried about a year ago with Legend of the Dinosaurs, a movie that was kind of jumping on the bandwagon with the sudden interest in the Loch Ness Monster and similar lake monsters around the world. The second boom of paranormal interests, along with, of course, the big Jaws, the big craze that Jaws left behind, which led to many other killer animal and monster movies. But that movie, I think, stumbled immensely in many regards. Like clearly they spent most of the money on like the large group of extras and location, and having real helicopters fly around the ocean, the waters, and the lakes. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the movie feels cheap, especially when the dinosaurs themselves are very lacking. Now, here, however, with Message from Space, it's a similar thing where the movie does seem cheap, but the elaborate miniatures, explosion effects, a large cast of extras that's used throughout the movie. Now, so much so that I think many of these unfortunate Jerusian citizens get killed multiple times throughout the movie. Oh, and it is pretty rough. Quick side note, the Gavanas are pretty much bastards in this movie. It's like, granted, they're not as bad as their television counterparts I'll get to later, but the fact that they commit wholesale slaughter and genocide onto women and children, it instantly makes it clear that these are horrible, miserable, conquering bastards. And I hope that people in the real world don't try to support similar horrible conquerors who gladly murder women and children en masse. Irony. Terrible, dark, horrible irony. Brayton says, I would wager to guess that this is just one of the many places Garuda and Beba 1 have been bumming it since it. Morrow seems to be the type, laughs out loud. Hey, it was big enough to get a spin-off with Sword of the Space Arc, huh, he says. Yeah, so Message from Space was such a big production that Toei decided to kind of recuperate a lot of their budget value, or production value, I should say, by making a television series, which is actually announced at the end of the movie, and that one was called Message from Space Galactic Wars. Although whereas this one is space romance with a little bit of samurai sword fighting, Message from Space Galactic Wars is more of a violent ninja versus ninja series of the week, but still with a lot of science fiction space elements thrown in. And I actually just watched a bunch of episodes throughout the week, and it's not a bad series. I am happy that's only 29 episodes long, so it's kind of easy to get into, as opposed to like the 50 to 100 episode epics of anime and live action shows of this same era. And Message from Space, Galactic Wars was re-edited into an American compilation film called Sword of the Space Arc, which weirdly enough aired on early CBC television. I think that's the Catholic station run by those horrible people who are no longer with us, unfortunately. But yeah, back in the early days when the network was desperate for programming, Sword of the Space Arc would show up quite often. Even knowing that at the end of the day, it's just a Japanese program dubbed into English, regardless of little minor elements connected to the Bible and whatnot. But yeah, sort of. But Galactic Wars, I think, is an okay series. It is very repetitive, and it is one of those Japanese television series where there's so much murder and death and violence that you have to question if the heroes are at all effective whatsoever, or if all the writers on the shows were just 1970s edgelords who it's like, hey, I'll kill an entire village in this episode. I don't think we did that in the last one. You did, buddy. And as such, because of so much death and destruction in Galactic Wars, it kind of loses its bite after a while. It's one of those Japanese action series where if you're a guest star character, regardless if you're the villain of the week or an innocent villager, yeah, we know you're going to die because that's the way the show goes. Here, though, I think the brutality of the Gavanas is definitely handled a lot more, especially when you see just how kind of callous the Gavanas themselves are about it without being outright evil too. It's like it's almost a weirdly realistic evil presented in this movie. Now, weirdly, Jack here, again played by... Yeah, hold on. Yeah, so they're still desperate for gold because Jack's superiors, they demand money after Jack spent it helping his friends fix their machines. Their spaceships, I should say. And as such, Jack has basically, as you'll see, Jack has basically betrayed everybody, is going to betray Princess Esmeralda and Yuriko by selling them into slavery. Which is a big thing you should not be doing, even as one of the heroes of the film. But the thing about Jack, again played by, let me get his name right, Masazumi Okabe, everyone says he's probably the most useless character in the movie, and it's like, why would he be a hero at all? But when you think about it, and this was something I just recently came to realize, and forgive me, this is going to sound ridiculous, he's sort of a reverse Judas in this movie. In the sense that he starts off doing something pretty nefarious for very greedy and petty reasons. And yet in doing so, he basically ensures that the Destiny Trap is wrapped around our heroes and forces them to come together to save the day. And of course, he ends up becoming a better person towards the end, where ironically, while he's not much of a fighter, we see that at the end, him and Beba 1, the robot, who are usually called the weakest characters in the whole film, that they both end up kind of becoming heroes in their own right when they help pretty much all the surviving Jerusians get on board of the ship, much to both Beba's inability to run around really quickly and Jack's own terrified nature, though at the end he definitely shows, when push comes to shove, he's definitely on the good guy's side. But weird enough, by selling out Yuriko and Esmeralda to this old woman. By the way, the two old women who show up in this movie are played by male actors in drag. And I'm listening to the original Japanese audio, supplied by Brayton. And yeah, the actors do a really good job playing these roles because you can actually assume them to be women. Especially the great Japanese character actor, who I will have his name soon, Hideo Amamoto, who is probably best known to American audiences as Doctor Who from King Kong Escapes. He actually plays Dark Mother, or simply Dark, the real power behind the Gavanas, with her son, Rakuzaya the Fifth, or Rakuzaya the 12th, I should say. Hold on, let me get his name right. I always thought it was like Rakuzaya the Fifth. Rakuzaya the 12th. Yeah, with Rakuzaya the 12th played by Mariko Narata, kind of being equal co-rulers of the Gavanas. But yeah, Hideoto Amato does a good job playing Dark. And unfortunately, I don't know who the old lady is being played in this movie by. But it is it is like one of those weird characters you find in a Japanese action films. Or I should say, like, no, gothic fiction in general. This weird old woman who probably is a nice guy when she's not enslaving people. And the revelation that her adopted son is this alien monster from Pluto, which you really don't fully understand the first time you see this movie. Although when you get into Galactic Wars, aliens from completely different species and planets are ridiculously commonplace. Although, as the narrator notes, and as we'll see throughout the movie, there's dialogue that the solar system, despite human beings kind of venturing out and colonizing different worlds, they're still kind of relatively isolated, and they don't know most of the universe and the aliens that live in there. And in turn, most of the aliens, like the Gavanas, are even aware the solar system has life in it. But yeah, before Jack does become a hero, this is probably his most nastiest and lowest point. Brutally attacking and hurting Yoroko. Of course, Hiki Yoroko, the weird alien monster son, helps in that regard. But yeah, they were ready to kill our hero. They was ready to kill one of our heroes. Yes, he may not be one of the Yabe chosen, but he's definitely an important player in the movie, as we will see. But yeah, so this whole sequence is definitely like kind of like science fiction gothic. It almost feels like something right out of a 1960s Edgar Allan Poe movie, especially with the weird revelation of just what Hiki-Yoku actually is. So, now, anybody who really wanted full-scale aliens and monsters in this movie would probably be greatly disappointed. Like, I don't mind the silver-skinned Gavanas. I think they're great bad guys, and they're definitely visually appealing. But as far as, like, monsters go, which is what I think everybody wants in Japanese science fiction, Hiki-Roku is... He's a welcome addition. He has a really cool-looking design, this strange frog alligator man in a rather flashy outfit. He almost looks like one of the sub-generals from Johnny Sacco and his giant flying robot, just with way better creature effects. And I think that's largely because Shiniki Wakasuga, who is well known as a monster maker today, especially in the Millennium Godzilla films, this was one of his first jobs, doing a lot of the creature costumes. Weirdly enough, though, in addition to Hiki-Roku, he helped do the armor on all the Gavanas, as well as probably the makeup, which probably explains why the Gavanas actually have more impressive-looking costumes than our heroes, because one complaint a lot of people have about this movie is just how cheap a lot of the costumes are for the human characters. You know, especially when you get to the Jerusians. We like the Jerusians, but it's obvious they're wearing plastic leaves from what is essentially Japanese dollar stores of the day, or just flower stores in general, because let's face it, plastic leaves and plastic plants have been with us for a long time. But I think it's safe to say Shiniki Wakasuga worked on Hiki-Roku here. And again, it's a really good-looking creature design. But also, I do like the armored troopers of the Gavanas, who usually get overlooked in face of their samurai superiors. In Galactic War, it's hinted that these beings are not regular Gavanas. They're more like silver-eyed, completely black shadow-like men who wear armor. Although that may have been just a way to save budget with acting, so they could probably just be silver-skinned Gavanas in there. Yeah, take this old woman too. The dubbing for this movie, comparing to both the Japanese version and the Japanese original audio and the dub version, is not half bad. It is cartoony, but it's very competent, well done. And some of the dub voices, I think, actually complement some characters way more than the Japanese versions. Okay, not, like I said, the two old villainous ladies in this movie. I don't want to use the H-A-G word. They are definitely very well played in the original Japanese version, but in the dub version, they wisely chose real female actresses to do the voices of the old ladies. But I think the big thing I want to bring up is the fact that the English voice actor for Rakuzeya the 12th is much more menacing and has a much more deeper bravado than actor Mikio Narata does, because Mikio Narata has a somewhat lighter voice that you don't expect coming out of this impressive looking demonic silver-skinned samurai man. By the way, a quick note about Miroko Narata. He was famous for playing all sorts of villainous yakuza and criminals throughout many movies, particularly playing various characters in the playing the recurring rogue in the Battle Without Honor Humanity series, Matsunaga Hiroshi. And he was sort of a rival to Sonny Chiba. So later in this movie, when Rakuzeya the 12th and Sonny Chiba's character Hans are facing each other in one final showdown, it's basically Mariko Narada and Sonny Chiba kind of doing a sci-fi take on their classic rivalry from the Battle Without Humanity or Honor movies. Okay, so our so-called heroes, again, this is probably Jack being at his most lonesome, lying about the fact that Esmeralda and Yuriko are okay, while they're celebrating about it. But consequence and destiny comes to bite them all in the ass when Yuriko appears. Now, thankfully, our heroes do kind of redeem themselves, but yeah, this is... I don't think there's many hero journey stories where their lowest point is them basically being semi-villains in their own right. And here Jack is just trying to justify it again for what they did. Now, granted, there's kind of a good reason for it. There is sort of something mentioned throughout the movie that there hasn't been any major space wars in their generation. Something even General Garuda kind of mentions. And I hope that isn't sort of a pro-militaristic viewpoint. I just think it's just because mankind has not been in a proper major battle for a long time. And it is something that kind of unfortunately comes at a bad time when something like the Gavanas calling for the conquest of Earth. So I'm going to take a quick drink because I've been talking like crazy. And Aaron reveals that his own father died in one of the past space wars. And since a major space war hasn't happened in almost 20 years, I'm guessing this is... Yeah, he's been pretty much fatherless his whole life. Now, the person playing Aaron is actor Philip Kasnoff. And he is an American actor despite the last name. But what's interesting is that Message from Space was his major film debut. Although he would also appear in other... he would also appear as a character in Christmas Evil, a movie that I would like to stream one day. Maybe next year. And he was even uncredited as a PlayStation owner in Ted 2. But he is an actor, from what I understand, was more well-known for doing musicals and Broadway shows. Which is ironic because if you've seen this movie and you wonder why Aaron feels like a discount or diet version of... oh, darn. Oh, God, his name blanks on me. From Saturday Night Fever and Face Off. Oh, John Travolta. That's because he actually starred as John Travolta's character in a stage play, in the stage version of Grease. Before being cast for Message from Space. Or at least that's what I know from the best of my knowledge. With that said, though, Philip Kasnoff as Aaron does... Well, his character is a little underbaked and underwritten, especially if he's supposed to be kind of our lead hero. Although I think that's another strength and weakness of this movie, is that there really is no major focal character. It is an ensemble. He does have a... Oh, not tenacity. What's that word when it's... Darn it. Hold on, let me take a drink. Intensity. Yes, there we go. Where he has an intensity that definitely is kind of... That's the thing, though. Yeah, he has an intensity to his character. And that's the thing about the American actors in this movie. Their intensity and sort of semi-campy performances, I think, complement the Japanese performances really well. Although I know one of the criticisms is that this movie is very campy. Not campy, but a little melodramatic, which is kind of common of Japanese fiction. Like, this movie is just... It's a little more serious and straight-faced than, say, an episode of Super Sentai. But yeah, it's like, I'm surprised there's not a scene where the Jerusians are like pumping their fists and saying, "You can do it! You can save the day!" You know, that kind of melodramatic fluff that's kind of common of mainstream Japanese fiction. Yeah, at the same time, I think it ultimately works because, from what I understand, Message from Space, it didn't exactly wow people in the audiences, but it did okay. But we'll see what happens. If I ever do a proper podcast about this movie, we'll probably get more information. I did order like the Eureka foreign Blu-ray release of this from Eureka Entertainment from their Masters of Cinema, which was a very elaborate multi-audio commentary filled release, but unfortunately works on UK region DVD and Blu-ray players. And any attempt to try to get a digital copy of it here in America has failed. So unfortunately, I can't give you much information. What's even worse is I left it with a friend who said he could burn it onto regular American DVDs for me, only to say that, oh yeah, he can't. And there's at least a 20-page booklet in that DVD set. Had I still have the DVD set with me instead of it having it across town, I'd probably be telling you a lot more about this movie than right now. And there has been a lot of complaints about this movie, like the fact that, yeah, it's a little high-strung, it's a little melodramatic. But I think it definitely works a lot better than other examples of it, because I know Message from Space Galactic Wars goes into, like, children film territory, and there's a lot of really bad tonal whiplashes, too. You know, where you have kids playing, and then suddenly they get massacred by evil aliens. Whereas here, I think it keeps enough of a straight face the whole time. And again, this is a science fiction version. And this time I'm gonna get the name right, so let me get the name of the story in which this is based upon. Also gives me a moment to take a breather. Yes. So yeah, it's a futuristic take on the famous Japanese literary classic Nanso Satomi Hakeden, which is about 8 warriors destined to come together and restore a defamed family name and avenge its name from a group of villainous samurais led by an evil emperor and his mother, in which Rakuzeya and Dark perfectly represent. And I think in that regards, when you take it in that direction, when you take it on that face value, the movie itself is kind of like a really kind of neat 70s fairy tale. It is almost mythological in its, like you're watching like a really good heightened play based on a mythical tale. It might be a little dry in that regards, but it's unique as well. And here is a kind of verbal confrontation between Rakuzeya and Esmeralda. As we saw in the flashback, Rakuzeya and his Gavanas are absolutely to blame for a lot of the horrible things that happen. I fully understand her point of view, because I know other people have watched this movie in the past with me for just one viewing. They do weird victim blaming on the Jerusians, saying that they should have just gave in to the Gavanas. But I'm thinking the Gavanas took it way more worse. You know, it's like, yeah, they came to conquer the planet, but did they have to murder and kill so many people? It was a fact that's brought up multiple times in the television spinoff, where you have horrible villains killing innocent women and children just because it's convenient for them, and not thinking twice about it, too. Now, this is a really interesting scene, and probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie, just because it's so kind of, you don't expect it. You have the old woman, the slave trader. She's been fatally injured by the Gavanas, and she's dying. But the Gavanas have taken her back to use her as basically an experiment, not an experiment, but just to prove that there is life in the solar system. And they're doing this kind of mind probe, looking upon her dying memories. And she does give off this beautiful dialogue about how she's been traveling through the universe, but she still remembers her childhood memories of Earth. and with the gorgeous music mixed with it too. This was a nefarious villain we saw not too long ago. Granted, she loved her son, and for that we can kind of give her credit for it. But now this is a moment, it's like, you're seeing humanity, there's this life that's about to disappear. And a lot of Japanese action films where people are just being killed left and right, it is kind of sad that you never really get to know them or see them as people. They're just bodies to be thrown against the wall. And here she is, her final wish is hoping to go back to Earth, go back home. Which, in this beautiful moment, you also see Roxea, and this is, great acting on Mariko's side, of him just seeing Earth for the first time as if he's seen a gorgeous jewel from heaven. And they're being callous, like, they're advancing the mind probing device, which is, dangerous to the woman. Granted, the one silver-skinned samurai activating device says the woman would die, but the minute Roxea says do it anyways, it's like, yes sir, no problem. It's beautiful. I've never seen a planet as beautiful as this. What is the name of this planet? It is called Earth, the third planet of the solar system, my lord. Earth. Yes. So yeah, Roxea, an old woman is dying and giving off these beautiful final memories, and Roxea, it's like, yeah, his mind is elsewhere. It's like, ooh, new thing for me to conquer. The life has just ended. So, but yeah, and then the fact that Roxea, the first thing he says is like, Mother, do you think Earth would be a perfect planet to build our kingdom from which to conquer the universe? I think so, son. If we succeed, you will be the most important king in history. I like it. Yes, so from that, the world is basically doomed. Yeah, like I said, it's like a reverse Judas situation with Jack. He got Esmeralda, the old woman, into that terrible situation. Esmeralda is now a prisoner of Roxea and his Gavanas. While the old woman basically reveals the existence of Earth. So through Jack's action, they pretty much sealed their own fate. Like I said, this movie is rather clever when you think about it. It plays with the Destiny Trap narrative, while also kind of moving everything into place for our heroes to get there. Now, would things have ended up the same way if they had willingly went with them? Jack and the other humans to help in the first place? Or would they be at a disadvantage here? I don't know, that makes you think. But yeah, Destiny will not be denied. In some regards, I think weird enough that the Obby Seeds choosing a kind of a backstabbing scumbag like Jack to kind of get things into motion, to get a final conflict that will free the universe from the horror of the Gavanas and hopefully save what's left of the Jerusians. That is very interesting. It's something like the subplot in The Last Temptation of Christ, where Judas is actually a friend of Christ, who is a good man in his own right, granted a bit of a anti-Roman fanatical. Can't blame him, the Romans were pretty bad towards everyone who wasn't Roman. Do you think the word barbarian means barbarian? No, it means anything that isn't Roman. You and me are not Romans of the Roman Empire, so yeah, we can go to hell too. So yeah, and Judas in The Last Temptation of Christ, he knows what his destiny is to basically sell out Jesus, but it's the only way to kind of save the world and make things better for everyone away from the Roman Empire. But no, Jack isn't like Harvey Keitel in that same regard. No, absolutely not. Harvey Keitel is amazing in that movie. But no, it's kind of a similar situation where Jack's betrayal of Yoroko and Esmeralda actually leads events to escalate, which leads us to this really spectacular. Anybody who wants to say that this movie is cheap and has no production value whatsoever, look at this sequence where the Jerusia has been revealed to be a mobile planet. The Roxea and his Gavanas basically gutted out and put in giant rocket engines into it. Yeah, it's not as impressive and as well designed as the Death Star, but it's definitely very dynamic. And Roxea basically comes to Earth, tells them, "Hey, surrender. I like it. I like your home. Give it to me." And Earth responds by, as most military powers would, just by shooting first, ask questions never. With these three rather, I think the designs of the various spaceships and the way they're constructed are really well done throughout this whole movie. It's like they're very detailed, but they're not overly ridiculously detailed. Now, granted, I can't really tell what Roxea, Dark, and the other Gavanas are thinking here. But maybe at first they're just kind of like just amused by the little attempts by the humans of Earth to try to fight back with their military ships. Of course, it'll escalate to the point where they will definitely end this conflict. And this giant flying wing / atomic warhead is a very impressive effect right here. Like, these are some grade A explosions. Maybe even better than some of the stuff that was being done for the Mechagodzilla movies. Granted, though, a lot of Gerusians get unfortunately killed in this scene. That should have ended the entire species right there, I'm just saying. Brayton comically says, I don't want anybody peeping at my deathbed thoughts. Just give me some privacy in my final moments. I've seen some shiz. I can imagine, Brayton, no offense, so I can imagine, like, you know, you're having a tummy ache, and Boo and her extended family are surrounding this, like, you know, what is this place? Iowa. I want to see more. But if we keep up the mind control, Brayton will get an even bigger tummy ache. He can take some Pepto-Bismol. Boo, you're so evil. And Goji Shea has joined us. He says, I have come to chew bubblegum and snark, and I'm all out of bubblegum. Hello. Yes, so let me see where we're at on the movie. If you want to, we are at the 57 mark of the movie, 58. We're now 58 minutes, 51, 2, 3, 4 seconds. So yeah, if you want to jump into the movie, try to get it there. The first link is probably the best one to do so. But yeah, right now, the Gavanas have basically told the Earthships to go screw themselves and destroy it with great ease. Brayton says this whole problem would have been solved if only they had Santa Claus on this planet. Solves everything. Oh god. Iowa, not Brayton's home country? Oh yeah, there's Canada, I forgot. This is a scene that okay, I only recently rediscovered the scene where they say the battleships failed and that the opposition party puts in a new person in control of the Earth, become the president of Earth, Ernest Noguchi, as the council's leader. But an opposition party? What does that mean? Oh, actually, no. I thought it was... Okay, so obviously the original party was all gung-ho, let's shoot first, ask questions later. And obviously that didn't work out very well. So, thankfully, Roxea is going to give the Earth 3 days to surrender. So this thing basically establishes that Noguchi is friends with General Garuda. And because of this major failing, Noguchi has been put in charge to try to find a more peaceful or more intelligent way to handle the Gavanas. And he's gone to General Garuda because General Garuda, despite being a gruff and semi-alcoholic general, is a lot smarter than most military men, as we'll see with his former commander there in the background, kind of just being not vindictive, but judgmental of his former aide. And again, it's that Destiny trap too. You know, it's like, had the Earth military not failed, then Ernest Noguchi, played by... Yeah, he's played by somebody. Hold on. Everybody's played by somebody here. Boom, 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 boom. He's played by Tetsuro Tamba, who is a... Oh, yeah, who is a major actor. Who's appeared in nearly 300 movies. This is a major get as far as a guest star appearance in this movie. Tetsuro Tenba. Just seeing what movies he's been in, so. Oh yeah, he's done a lot of voice acting roles and whatnot, so. He's been in a lot of genre movies too. He did a lot of voice work for Studio Ghibli movies, for Twilight the Cockroach. He's been in science fiction films like Tokyo Blackout, Rikyo, The Story of Ricky, Shogun's Shadow, Gozu, Demon Pawn from 2005, and Tokyo Sync remake. So yeah, his final film role being Tokyo Sync. So yeah, Tetsuro Tamba was a major get for this movie. And I believe this general who's yelling at Garuda, his former superior, is played by Jerry Ito. Of course, it's almost unrecognizable with the heavy mustache. Or it may have been Jerry Ito earlier in the movie yelling him over the camera. Okay. Random G fan says, makes me want to see a tokusatsu anime based on Galaxin or Galaga. Oh, weirdly enough, there is a Kyoto Video. They did a review earlier this year of a anime based on one of those kind of Galaga or Galaxian games. I just can't remember of it right off the top, but yeah, it goes full on of having a small jet go into a monster-filled landscape. So yeah, so there is actually an anime like that. It's just unfortunately I don't think I just can't remember the title off the top of my head. And Big Jack Films is in the audience. Merry Christmas to you, too. I guess all the night owls are coming out. Actually, Random G fan, I'll quickly check that out because I do need to take a drink and rest my pipes for a moment. Yeah, just give me a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Now, at this point of the story, with the Gavanas coming to Earth, and our heroes having some pretty traumatic nightmares, as well as being reunited with most of the Kiabi seeds, minus Eren, who has an unfulfilled crush on the princess that never really goes anywhere, which I think is probably one of the weakest subplots of the movie. Our heroes are more or less getting, they want to join the fight. They want to be heroes. They definitely understand. I think they had regrets about getting rid of their Yabi seeds, but then when they get them back, and Maya comes in with her Yabi seeds, it kind of motivates everyone except for Eren, who for the most part is just angry about the whole situation, which of course leads to a fist fight, or a punch-up as they call them in America, between him and his friend Shiro. And of course, Hiroyuki Sanada has gone on to great success in modern-day America, but he appeared in a lot of television shows and anime. In fact, he's actually one of the lead stars of Message from Space Galactic Wars, which is amazing because I'm surprised considering how even to this day, people are kind of judgmental against old television roles from wacky shows. That's not being used against them in interviews or anything. But then on the other hand, maybe more power to Hiroko Sanada. I don't know how he feels about his old tokusatsu roles. Although if I was ever lucky to help set up a proper screening of Message from Space at like a major theater, it would be nice to have him in attendance and maybe kind of go over some, how it was like filming on this film. And of course, the Gavanas send forth their giant ship to attack our heroes. In a scene that seems completely out of nowhere. Like, why? This is like one of the few Destiny traps that make no sense whatsoever. Why would the Gavanas attack their little ship, their little base, not finish them off, regardless if they are chosen warriors or not, and then just kidnap Jack? What did Jack do? Oh yeah, that's right. He started all this mayhem, so he gets kind of some comeuppance by being a temporary prisoner of the Gavanas. And it is during this attack that Eren basically wants to go and save Jack. Doesn't care about not having the seeds, only be reunited with the seeds once more. So this is something funny that I never realized. Two major things. One, well, we'll talk about Maya in a little bit. But yeah, here's our heroes. They're finally full on with the adventure. Roko has more or less forgiven them, and they're going on the ship to go straight to Jerusia. But this is one of the few times where the Yabi seeds actually actively alter the course of history to get them where they need to go. So it's kind of funny to think that once our heroes accept their destiny and are full on at becoming heroes, what happens? On their way to Jerusia, the Yabi seed goes crazy. Mia's Yabi seed goes crazy and causes them to crash on a planet somewhere in the Bedardi system. At least that's what I think the dialogue says. And that's where they meet one of our secret heroes that we have not met to this point, Hans, who you'll see in a little bit. But yeah, Hans is more of the traditional hero from a science fiction tale, a lost prince and a former member of the Gavanas, who not only wants revenge against Rockzea for killing his mother and father, the true rulers of the empire, but also to basically just stop his people from committing more horrific crimes and help the universe, not just the Gerusias, but the universe at large from the evil that they've committed. So in a sense, our less than perfect protagonists, they accept their destiny, and in doing so, they're awarded another hero. It's like getting a Pokemon, except this Pokemon is played by Sony freaking Chiba. And Sony Chiba, of course, was a major... He was both an action star and a professional stuntman and teacher of stunts, even owning his own stunt school. And he was very famous throughout the 70s, appearing in many television shows and movies, most notably the original Street Fighter series, the film ones not related to the video game. Of course, Sony Chiba had a kind of an unfortunate dip in his career when he made a movie based on violent black bear attacks in turn of the century Japan. A movie that became such a flop that kind of ruined his star. Thankfully, like a lot of the great cult stars like Christopher Lee and Vincent Price, he was rediscovered and reused in later movies by a lot of people across both in Japan and in America. Most notably his appearances in Kill Bill and just films in general. So yeah, Sony Chiba is a legendary actor and action star in Japanese cinema. So again, it's a big get that he's showing up so late in the movie as Hans, but he's a welcome addition nonetheless. And his character also gives us a lot more context on what the hell is up with the Gavanas. And I also think his character also represents that unlike most Japanese fiction, it's not black and white as far as aliens go. Like the current rule of the Gavanas is just a corruption brought forth by Rockzea the 12th and his mother. Whereas Hans probably represents the good Gavanas, the ones who have probably been destroyed long before Gerusia was ever invaded. So, but it is funny. The first time I shared this movie with Brayton, I don't know if it was a private watch or I think it was a private watch. We both laughed our asses off because, yeah, the sudden appearance of Hans was something that got me even when I was a kid with my brothers. We're watching this movie, they land on this red planet, all of a sudden, silver armored hero shows up and attacks them out of nowhere. So, which is another joke I think Brayton made once. It's like, hello, I'm here with a message from space, which is a criticism a lot of people have of this movie. What is the message from space? Who is the message from and whatnot? Well, there's two ways to go about it. Some people say the message is the ultimatum that Rockzea himself gives to the planet Earth. You know, hey, suckers, give me your Earth or you're doomed. However, the advertisements, both in Japan and America, make it clear that's the Gerusians that sends out the message from space through the Ryabi seeds, of course, indirectly if you want. And that's the message from space, but I guess you can take it either way. And I will admit, the simplistic title to Message from Space does not help when you're doing a Google search, because, holy crap, I don't want to hear about conspiracy theories with SETI and whatnot, so. Alright, let's check out some comments. Goji Shea says, a YouTuber I follow called Atomic Snack Bar had this movie listed as one of his favorite space operas. Oh, wow. Okay, well, nice to know I'm not the only one. And Brayton says, oh, damn, and he's got a Tori Hanzo sword in reference to Hans. And, of course, he repeats his famous line when Hans shows up. It's like, hi, I'm here. I'm with the message from space. ... question mark. Goji says, I thought I recognized Sony from the Kill Bill movies. And not only that, but the person playing in the Kill Bill movies, this is something I only recently discovered, his partner in the sushi restaurant and his fellow sword maker is the original Space Sheriff Gavan. So yeah, the actor who plays that, and I think maybe one of the actors who played Kikaider, but I could be mistaken there. I'm going to take a quick drink. Now, Vic Morrow. A lot of people like to give Vic Morrow a lot of criticisms for his roles in this movie. Because first off, even knowing that this was a bigger production than most Japanese science fiction films from the 70s, it was still considered kind of a backhanded compliment that if you had to go to Japan to get a career, it was basically kind of a sign that your career was in the dumps. Something that I think rose on Russ Tamblin's mind when he did War of the Gargantuas. Hence his less than stellar performance in that movie. On the other hand, some actors, when they went to Japan, embraced it and saw it as both a vacation and just do a fun science fiction movie with friends and fellow like-minded artists. Hence, while you get like people like Richard Jackal in Green Slime and Latitude Zero, or even Cesar Romero in Latitude Zero, and of course Nick Adams in his various Toho movies just having a ball with this material. Vic Morrow is somewhere in the middle, because yeah, his character seems a little on the sad spot, and from what little interviews and articles I've read, I think he was not 100% thrilled being in this movie. But quite frankly, he still gives it a good performance. You really do buy General Garuda as a world-weary, embittered general, but one who will still step up both to do the moral right thing, to help the Gerusians, and as we see in this scene, even show mercy to the somewhat backstabbing General Lars. It also represents just how that Roxea doesn't much appreciate failure and dishonor in his own organization, despite the horrible things they've done to the Gerusians. But yeah, it's like I think Vic Morrow kind of matches the cadence and the attitude that the story needs. It's a little bombastic. It's a little out there. His outfit, for example, it's like that's both stylish and maybe a little too much for an envoy from space. Look at the size of that collar. It's bigger than the moon outside. Get ready to say goodbye to the moon, by the way. But no, I think he handles the role very well. And of course, the character was a big influence on my original character, Blue Scythe. Alien bioweapon who is embittered and kind of sorrowful about his lot in life, but who still steps up to being a great hero. Although, granted, I think General Garuda would be a much better choice than Blue Scythe, considering some of the things the character gets up to. But yeah, you can blame Vic Morrow for all this. Nana, of course, we all know about the tragic end of Vic Morrow's life, and during a time when his career looked like it was back on the ups and ups. But no, I think he's pretty cool in this movie too. So, and I think he matches everyone's energy really well here. So this may have been a low point for his career as far as most people are concerned, but no, his presence here is still very much appreciated. Still, though, in the future, I think we need to film or stream like better movies featuring Mr. Vic Morrow. Brayton says Chiba's character of Hanzo is a direct nod to his character in the Japanese TV series Shadow Warriors, that he was in. Kind of a Pame situation where the character namesake at least appears elsewhere, and sometimes played by the same actor. Because Gordon Liu, who played Paimei, also played Paimei in one of his many movies about the character of Paimei. This scene freaked me out as a kid. It's like, okay, it's already bad enough the Gavanas threaten the life of Earth, but they blow up the moon. And Brayton says Vic Morrow is sure a snappy dresser indeed. Yeah, that's probably one of the better costumes in the movie, even though you can see the seams and all that. But yeah, here's the thing, though. In science fiction, the destruction of planets happens way too often. It becomes even kind of a joke. Like in Star Wars, nobody can have a safe home because their planet's going to blow up. You know, who needs home insurance when you need planet insurance? And as a kid, there was always a disconnect because it always took place in these galaxies far, far away and different universes where if a planet was destroyed, regardless if it was filled with innocent people or not, you could sort of ignore it because it's not a real world. When you're a little kid and the moon is just callously destroyed because Roxea wants to make a point, hey humans, you're screwed, give me your planet, I think it's cute. That kind of freaked me out because holy shit, they blew up the moon and just so quick and easily too. So yeah, that definitely not exactly freaked me out, but it did shock me a bit when I was a little kid. So Now, General Garuda, again in an equally fancy outfit, it's like, holy crap, forget the green berets. What is this silver magnificence? He decides that he's going to go back and help the Gavanas. And of course, there's sort of a recurring joke. It's a little character detail that he's often considered Don Quixote, with his robot Beba 2 being sort of Pancho. I hope I got the name wrong. But yeah, I think it's kind of it's kind of a neat comparison that this man is out of his wit, but like Don Quixote, he'll still challenge the giants. And yes, Goji Shay, add the Dragon Ball. There's a character who casually destroys the moon more than once. Oh yeah, okay. I only know about Piccolo blowing up the moon just to keep Gohan from having a fit. And the moon has been destroyed in other works of fiction. Like, I know Mr. Show hilariously did a sketch where, God, in Middle American movement or a Midwestern movement ends up having people wanting to destroy the moon for no reason. And of course, realistically, if the Earth was suddenly deprived of a moon, all hell would break loose with the tides and whatnot. So, but still, it's a big shock. But like, let's try not to blow up the moon in the future. It just causes so many logistic issues. Like, granted, Roxea's missile did a good job cleaning up the mess. But now this is a cool scene where they kind of trick the Gavana monitoring station that their 3 ships are just falling meteors. And weird enough, as popular as this ship is with Japanese otakus, I see like all sorts of model pics and recreations on it online, especially in Twitter, which is still very popular with Japanese science fiction fans. I don't think the ship ever gets a proper name in this movie, although I know in Galactic Wars, the TV spinoff, it's referred to as the Yabe, in honor of the Jerusians and the Yabe seeds. But on the subject of the Yabe, I want to talk about Maya a little bit, because she's another character who often gets greatly overlooked. She's not the beautiful Princess Esmeralda, but the interesting about Maya, played by Peggy Lee Brennan, another actress who did a lot of stage work and even co-starred, from what I understand, with Philip Kasnoff on the Grease musical stage, which probably explains why she feels like one of the girls from Grease. But Mia is sort of the secret heart of the whole movie, because she's the one who embraces becoming a hero where the other her 3 friends did not. She's the one who comes up with this insane idea of combining their ships to make this kind of super ship. And she does a lot of things throughout the movie that kind of ultimately helps our heroes, repairs technology, helps people. She's also the bridge that keeps Roko from wanting to kill her 3 friends. So yeah, she actually contributes quite a bit. She's sort of like the secret scientist of the team, the Billy to Vic Morrow's Power Rangers. And everyone is finally here, with the exception of 2 missing heroes. So, but no, I think Maya is a character who you tend to overlook, but it's in retrospect, yeah, she actually contributes a lot to it. And I think, again, like a lot of the other actors, Peggy Lee Brennan brings a lot of energy and enthusiasm to her role that really, like, in the first half, she does kind of come off a little annoying, because she is basically a rich girl who's kind of a little out of her depths, despite knowing how to be a intergalactic rough rider or dragster like the rest. Which, of course, ties into this scene where it turns out, hey, that's why the Yabe Seeds chose these young teenagers who really know how to fly a spaceship, because they're basically ripping off the ending of Star Wars. Now, there's sort of a joke that a lot of people who review this movie, they say that George Lucas would take a lot away from Message from Space and add to Star Wars later. Especially with the destruction of the core itself by spaceships in tight spaces, feels a lot more like the spectacular spaceship Death Star run with Lando Calrissian, as opposed to just shooting 2 lasers or plasma fireballs into a hole. And you do kind of get a similar feel like it here. But admittedly, going inside the gigantic doomsday machine to take out the engine is very Star Wars-ish. So, but I do like how, again, you see some wonderful models, and it is kind of cool that they're using mysticism and magic as a replacement for a simple monitor to see what's going on. But this scene also establishes something even more important, Yuriko. Yuriko has gone through a lot of shit, and Makoto Sato does a great job acting just how angry he is about they've sacrificed so much. So many people have died, loved ones. Yuriko may have had family or lovers or even children who have died because of this horrible things. He kept strong throughout the whole thing, especially being a dear friend to both Kato, the head of the Drusians, the old man there, as well as being a dear friend of Princess Esmeralda. But now to find out that instead of saving Jerusia from the Gavanas, they're going to sacrifice the planet just to save the whole universe and end the Gavanas themselves. If you were in that position, I can totally understand where he's coming from. If you were in that position fighting to save the Earth from an alien invasion and found out that at the end, the only way to stop the invaders is not only to destroy the Earth, but you got to do it to save the rest of the universe, that wasn't there for you in the first place to save you from these group of invaders, yeah, I'd be pissed off too. Granted, the way he goes about it doesn't exactly work, but it also adds to the Destiny Trap subplot throughout this whole movie. And Yuriko's fate, it's ambiguous whether or not it's a good thing or it's just maybe he was the sacrificial lamb of the 8 Yabi heroes. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Are you familiar with another space opera movie called Warning from Space, Raph? I think you're talking about War in Space, Goji Shea. Yeah, Warning from Space is a 1950s science fiction movie from Dai Studios, which was sort of their take on something like The Day the Earth Stood Still, and about benevolent aliens trying to save mankind from a great disaster. But War in Space was a later movie from Toho, I think maybe around the mid-70s, I think 74, if not 76, which was not only their attempt to try to do a space opera similar, both because of the space romance boom in 1970s Japan, but also to get a little bit of that Star Wars money as well. But it's also kind of a spiritual sequel, or unofficial sequel, to Atragon. Hence why our heroes take what is basically a spacefaring version of Atragon to go fight an evil ancient civilization on the planet Venus. I think War in Space was even originally meant to be a direct sequel to Atragon, just with aliens in place of the lost continent of Mu. And that movie does feature a space beast man who is a much more brutish and nastier take on Chewbacca. Although the space beast man is a lot of fun in his own right, and very much like Hikiroku and Beba 1 in this movie, they are the only real full-blown monster characters in which monster fans can really enjoy, or fantasy creatures, if you will, because Hikiroku was just an adopted child who happened to look like a frog alligator from Pluto, and Beba 1 is just, a silly man, a silly little robot boy. Weirdly enough, though, I like Beba 1. I know he's probably the most useless of the 8 Yabi warriors, although when he teams up with Jack to help evacuate soldiers, he definitely proves his worth. And for a plucky robot, he definitely shows tenacity and boldness that I think other robot sidekicks lack, especially in the world of Japanese anime and science fiction in the 70s and 80s, where usually if you were a comic relief character, you stay a comic relief character. And annoyingly so. Something that I'm glad we're finally getting out of with recent shows like Dan to Dan and some of the better entries in tokusatsu shows like Ultraman and what's left of Super Sentai. Rest in peace. Probably the closest thing you get to a kaiju in this movie is Roxea's giant hologram. Weirdly enough, there was going to be a kind of a kaiju / giant robot in this movie. Originally, at the end of the film, Roxea's mother, Dark Mother, if you will, she tries to kill our heroes with a gigantic mechanical claw. Being the last surviving of the Gavanas, she comes after our heroes to try to kill them. Unfortunately, the effect sequence did not work out so well, with the giant claw constantly being caught on fire, or the idea was to have the giant mechanical claw on fire, but apparently the scene was just too difficult and didn't work too well, so instead they used the Gavana's flagship as the big final threat at the end of the movie, and I'll mention that point soon. I never saw the movie, but I've seen the aliens from Warning in Space, and they all look like a bunch of starfish with one eye, as you do. Oh, yeah, yeah. I think that's because the Pyralians, or the Pyra aliens in War in Space, were designed by a famous artist, the same one who would go on to create the Statue of the Sun with the giant chicken-looking creature at Expo 70, and whose many artistic works would go on to inspire the television series and movie Taroman. This film seeing the Taroman movie, Taroman Expo Explosion. Now, I got him. Now I've seen the original Japanese version. I don't like Beba's. I don't know. Like on one hand, it's like the Minya situation, but reverse. I like the original Japanese voice of Minya in All Monsters Attack, where it's done by a voice actress, but it's a lot less jarring than the Don Knotts impression in the American version. Here, though, I think the stereotypical robot voice in the American version is a little better than the little girl voice here, especially since it can get honestly grating at times. But this is Yuroko's final stand, where he joins the Gavanas in a desperate attempt to save his planet, not the people, but then realize, yeah, it's not right, and in a final moment, I think he takes out half the room shooting at the Rockzea hologram before a random soldier just shoots him in the gut. And if this was the television series A Message from Space, yeah, that random soldier would probably have shot him regardless if he got the others or not. But all of a sudden, we go from 1 to 11. Our heroes have been captured. Yuroroko shoots Rockzea's hologram and basically sets off the chain reaction, the final battle. So I think Yuroko, being an unwitting 8th warrior of the Yabis, one whose ultimate destiny is to basically betray them and to get everyone in the base to begin the battle proper, to cause that chaos that will allow their plan to succeed in the first place, the flame that will light the fuse, but it ultimately leads to his death. And that is one of the more ambiguous, scary things about the movie, because, yeah, there's a huge destiny trap that ensnares everybody for a greater good. But did Yuroko really have to die, or was that the horrible, unfortunate actions that happened because of that one Gavana soldier? And, of course, Jack and Beba, too. They seem like comic relief characters, and they're utterly confused at what they're trying to do here. Even with Beba telling Jack, "Don't worry, I'll protect your friend, just stand behind me." In fact, it's kind of weird. It seems Beba kind of grows a bit of a crush on Jack, since the two of them kind of become a duo at the end. But as you'll see, they actually help a lot of the surviving Gavanas get onto the evacuation ship. Meanwhile, Hans, now that he's in the heart of the fortress, he's ready to have his revenge. And I think even slowly moving grandmother knows that things are not good when Hans is in the room. And this is and even though there's a lot of like confusing kinetic camera editing going on here, it's not as bad as the shaky cam of modern cinema, and you have an idea where Hans is. And I do love that this movie may shoot a lot in a rock quarry and in smaller sets, but when they get into the bigger throne room of Rockzea and the Gavanas, you can definitely see the budget, along with these full-size recreations of the model ships, too. Granted, there's a little bit of plot armor going on with our heroes here, but it's not as bad as, say, the TV series, where if you're the lead hero, you can stand in the middle of, like, an atomic bomb and you'll be okay, while 200 extras just, say bye-bye. Random G fan says, "Hear me out. War in Space. Godzilla battles Commander Hell's space army and fights a giant space beast man." Ironic you should say that. There is a giant space beast man in one of the 1980s Godzilla manga anthologies. I think it was Star Warrior Godzilla, where basically Godzilla is an intergalactic warrior who has to save kind of a precursor to Biollante, Spirit in a Flower, and Space Beast Man is one of the many kaiju warriors, who they must rebel against the evil Earth Empire and their army of mechas. That's the same one that has Jet Jaguar as an evil motorcyclist. But yeah, if you're a Toho monster, you'll eventually grow giant size one way or another. So yeah, one thing a lot of people complain about this movie is how slow it moves. But yeah, it's like I've seen worse examples of Japanese films where you have like a really exciting opening sequence, and then the rest of the movie is nothing but dialogue and boredom, and nothing happens until maybe you get to the very end. Legend of the Dinosaurs can kind of be said in that same regard. But I think Message from Space keeps you entertained if you're willing to actually listen to the story. Although maybe a couple more extra action sequences spread throughout would have been nice. Outside the opening with the flagship chasing down Esmeralda's ship, and some of the random attacks that the Gavanas place upon the Earth. Although again, that big battle between the Earth battleships and the Gavanas' home base is very spectacular, and is worth the price of admission alone. And I love the design of the Gavana fighter jets too. These quasi-octopoid squid-like ships that just open up with the green lasers. That's another thing about this movie. The sound design is fan-freaking-tastic. Not only a lot of good different sound effects for all the different lasers. Yeah, like you hear a lot of them throughout the movie, but they definitely kind of do a lot of cool variations with the lasers and the different types of laser beams and weaponry used throughout. But also the movie was done with Dolby Stereo in mind. Even the American release from American International Pictures, I think, or United Artists, I should say. Yes, United Artists. It kept the stereo phonics, and this is a cleaned up version that Brayton has offered, the one that I'm currently watching, and the one that's available on Twitch at the time of this. But yeah, this is really, really excellent sound design. So I'm gonna switch out the screen for a moment. I forgot. Like, again, it's very comic booky, it's very Saturday morning, tokusatsu, regardless if your only reference is Power Rangers or not. And again, another argument against this movie is that there really is no lead hero, but it is an ensemble, and little character moments and little bits of dialogue and confrontations like this goes a long way. Hans finally meets Rockzea. You not only killed my mother and father in order to steal the crown, but you also invaded a whole universe and turned into a desolate place. The crimes deserve to be punished with death. Now die! That is a great line of dialogue. It shows that Hans isn't just doing this for his own personal revenge, but just to avenge all the people who have suffered because of Rockzea's cruelty and greed, because of just the vicious actions. Because if they did this as Jerusians, who knows what other worlds were destroyed during the many years in which Rockzea was in charge. And it's funny too, because all our heroes are doing bigger things to stop the Gavanas as a whole, but Hans' role in this story is to take out Rockzea himself. He is Rockzea's karmic executioner, which leads to this great scene where, holy shit, like, I know people say lightsabers are way cooler, but only in 70s Japanese cinema can you stab somebody straight in the forehead with an electrified sword, not a laser sword, an electrified katana. And then they fall out of a window, and while it's not 100% clear on your first viewing, Rockzea falls on top of his grandmother, and they both explode like 10 Power Ranger monsters at a wedding. That is a way to die. But like I said, Dark was originally supposed to live on a little longer to be the final big bad of the whole film. Now, Message from Space, this is something I didn't mention earlier. They incorporated some video effects from the 70s along with the more traditional analog and optical effects. And while it's a little suspect earlier in the movie with Maya and the boys just trying to get some space fireflies, I think it's a better handled here with the spaceship effects. Now, of course, there's all those closed doors, but there's one little plot point I do have to bring. How did they get out of there if there were like doors being closed left and right? So that will teach you. Again, this is like a kid's fairy tale taken to epic extremes. And Brayton says, "My name is Chiba Montoya." Oh, we have somebody new in the chat. Somebody named Kaikun999. He says hello. Welcome, Kaikun999. Sorry it's so late and the movie's almost over. But yeah, we're watching Message from Space, and the film's practically over. But it is at the 1:37:05:06:07 mark. And there are links to the movie in the chat section. So, although you can also just pair it up with whatever the subtitles are going on. So far, there really is no copyright issues going on, but we'll see what happens. YouTube's been weird about that recently. But no, thank you for joining us regardless. Okay, so I did use a lot of the special sound effects for the Glue podcast and its very violent climax where all the characters are just shooting Detective Dirty McCruption's empire left and right. But yeah, you can still hear a little bit of the laser effects at the end, and Brayton humorously notes like the big final battle cry of that podcast, "For the frozen yogurt." Now Kaido, the old man who is basically the leader of the Gerusians who've been keeping them strong this whole time, he makes a sacrifice to stay on the home world, to die along with the world of his forefathers and all that, and he leaves the rulership of the Gerusians in the hands of his granddaughter. Now, when I was a kid, and for the longest time, I always thought this was kind of lame, that Kaido just sacrifices himself out of nowhere just for this dramatic beat, and of course, he doesn't have a very dignified end when he falls into the chasm there. But it is, I don't know. I guess he is very old. He's seen so much mayhem and destruction. He's seen so many people die along with his own children. You know, again, Esmeralda is his granddaughter. So yeah, I guess it's the only way his character could have gone. So, still though, I think there was still enough room on that ship, and I think Kaido's wisdom could have been used. So I'm a little 50-50 about his final fate. It is beautifully filmed, however, the way the music and the sound effects drop out so that he can talk to his daughter. Realistically, I know this is something a lot of people have joked about. You know, it's like, how can she hear him over all that loud noises? And this is the final kamikaze run, or for very lack of a better term, against the Gavanna's flagship by the Lobby spaceship, with Mia, Eren, and Shiro ready to do their own sacrifice play. Now, originally, like I said, this was going to be Dark Mother in a gigantic robotic claw coming after them. And I think, based on the one small photo I saw long ago, the claw was going to try to chase them out of the upper atmosphere of the Gerusian homeworld. But I think I don't know how that original effect looked, but look at that. That final ending of the Gerusian flagship. That is some amazing miniature fire effects right there. And of course, the final destruction of Gerusia has been used a lot as stock footage in a lot of 80s tokusatsu superhero shows done by Toei Productions. You do get a happy ending, however, in the sense that the Yabi Seeds, in one last miracle, rescues Maya, Shiro, and Eren from a fiery death. So... And when the movie's about to end, so I'm going to read this comment from Goji Shea. I'm looking forward to whatever the next installment of Glue will be ready. Interested to see what lunacy the cast will get up to. There is 2 issues of the comic that will be coming up early next year. So if not, sometime before May at the very latest. This is General Garuda. The Gavanas have been destroyed. General Garuda, thank you. On behalf of the people of Earth, I appreciate all that you and your brave soldiers have done. Please come home to Earth and welcome all the Jerusians. Yeah, that's an... You know, you want to be cynical, especially the way foreigners and refugees are being treated in the real world today, or even before this, or even in the recent past before this unfortunate administration. Again, I won't be too political. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just really disappointed with the state of the world and just how callous people are. But escapist fantasy should be escapism, but also give you a sense of humanistic hope and optimism. And the fact that not only are the bad guys defeated thoroughly, the Earth is willing to let the Jerusians come to live on Earth with them, because the Jerusians helped save their world from a force that even they couldn't take on. And yet the big surprise is that Jerusalem is destroyed, but the Jerusians will find their own homeworld. And our earthly heroes, including Hans, formerly of the Gavanas, they all choose to go with the Jerusians and help rebuild a new world. Even Jack, who the only good thing he's ever done was get people on the boat, the literal space boat. He's excited to do it too. So yeah, there's this childlike enthusiasm. Like I said, this, in retrospect, this is basically this is like a big theatrical fairy tale put on screen, and it's weirdly earnest. More so than a lot of other Japanese superhero shows, and even a lot of the other both serious and anything but serious riffs on Star Wars and space operas that come from the 70s. And comparing it to something like Star Crash, and even the original Star Wars trilogy, I think is apt, because with all its flaws, it's trying to take itself seriously. It's sincere, and it's something I think both mainstream big-budget science fiction films today and low-budget ones have kind of forgotten. Another thing that this movie had that you don't see often much anymore is the presence of a narrator. And even though in the original Japanese version, the narrator doesn't come back at the end to basically end our story like the fairy tale. In the American version, they actually add the narrator. And so our heroes go off into space to rebuild a new world. So, and like I said, the final shot with the music and this wonderful model against this massive backdrop of Earth, even with this HD copy that I'm watching given to us by a friend Brayton, it's like there's beautiful craftsmanship. This may be my own childhood nostalgia taking a hold of me, ladies and gentlemen. But this movie really is one of my big childhood favorites. It's still, I often don't think much about it other than inspirations in science fiction and whatnot for my own original characters and stories. But like any good film from your childhood, you suddenly find yourself watching it again. Whether it be for a live stream you didn't really want to do in the first place that you thought may have been a bad idea. And then you suddenly just get back into the magic again. And I'm sorry that I didn't do this earlier, and I wish I could have shared this with you guys. Maybe I'll do a proper Twitch stream with friends in the future. But as it stands, I think this was Message from Space, the live stream. And I know Christmas can be a harsh time, but it can also be a wonderful time too, especially with friends and family. So that's it. That is my audio commentary for Message from Space, Starboard as we fly off into the distance. The end, indeed. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So that's the end of the proper live watch. If you guys have any questions or reviews, I will give you another 15 minutes if you wish. And then I'm going to call it quits because Santa's coming and I got to watch Godzilla vs. Hedorah and eat cookies with him. Okay, but yeah, I'm sorry that I wasn't here earlier, and I apologize about that. But yeah, let me go ahead and read any kind of comments that's left in the live stream. All right, so. Oh, it's going to be a comic now? Yeah, don't worry. No, Goji Shay. There's actually 4 issues of Glue that is fully inked and that's fully inked and lettered. They just need to be digitally scanned and colored, and that is something that I need to do this year. That's one of the big projects. I've been holding off on it for too long, but now I've had offers from friends to help fixing some of the lettering issues. So yeah, there's 2 issues of Glue coming. And that was Message from Space. I don't know if anybody wants to say anything in the chat right now, or even if we're still live streaming. Let me double check. All right, I can close up a lot of these extra windows. I had a lot to say. I'm surprised I was able to give that, other than some moments of respite and me just drinking stuff. Yeah, I had a lot more to say about this damn movie than I originally thought I would. Maybe it was a good idea not to bring other people on board. I have to revisit it from the beginning. It seemed like a fun movie. Well, Goji Shay, if you want, we can. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this Friday, if you got some free time, we'll play the movie again on my Twitch stream while I do some artwork, and you can join in if you want. So, but I think this will be the main video as far as A Message from Space goes. But I would like to do a podcast proper, maybe with Kevin Dorndorf and my friend Brayton, and talk about this movie in full. But yeah, that was Message from Space. And yeah, it's still a childhood favorite. It still stands up. Even though it has flaws, I've come to appreciate this flawed gem immensely. And I was able to see a lot of good things that I not really noticed beforehand when revisiting this movie earlier throughout the week. But yeah, it's Christmas time. I think I'm going to go ahead and call it quits. Whoops, I had my movie paused, ready to start. Oh, Brayton. Oh, I guess we're going to have to start over again. Everyone, go to the start. Hey, go. Okay, I'm going to go try find just some basic music video to play. Something space related. Likely you know what it's going to be. But yeah, just something to kind of end us out on the night. Go into the good old Glue playlist. Yeah, no. Maybe if I'm up for it, we'll definitely watch Message from Space during just one of my basic Twitch draw streams with you. And then you can watch the movie proper, Goji Shay. But like I said, there's a lot of links in the description if you want to revisit the movie. I'm looking at 2 big oranges that I'm going to cut up and have as a late night snack. And then I'm going to do some quick cleaning of the living room and go to bed and maybe watch Godzilla versus Hedorah one last time. Okay, so Brayton, I appreciate that song you sent. It's a fun song, but it is also a Disney song, and we're probably going to get kicked off. But I will play it at the end. I can always kind of edit out later. So yeah, let me just find some kind of weird space background. Unless he sent something new and I'm not seeing it. I don't know, I feel like I should just play a Liam Lynch song with him in space or something. Hold on. Where is the unofficial Glue playlist? Oh, there it is. Actually, no, because it's outer space, maybe I should play something a little more fitting. Unfortunately, YouTube has all these terrible commercials now, so that's not even worth it, is it? Alright. Maybe some old science fiction video. There's gotta be something here. You know, I'm also, apologies if you were watching one of the links connected to YouTube and it just kept going back to the commercials. Yeah, that's another thing. YouTube has become vicious with the commercials lately. Where are they? Do I dare? You know, I think I know exactly who I'm going to end the night on, and I'm going to take a chance with it, although I really shouldn't. Sorry about that. This is the riveting part of the commentary. Where are you? Let's see what the comments have to say. I know, Brayton, it is a fun song about an alien singing Christmas, not knowing what it's about, but it's still a Disney song, so it's probably going to get us in some trouble at the end. I can't find what I wanted to play. I wanted to play something from Cassiopeia, which is a fantastic Japanese band. I would highly recommend them. They were also a big inspiration on some of my future related characters. I wanted to play one of their live performances, but that's like what 70 minutes long, and if anyone's going to get copyright problems, you know what? Screw it. I don't think I'm going. Listen, if you dare, to messages from space. Oh, there we go. Okay, maybe. Hold on. Hold on. Okay, I did a great commentary, but this post show sucks. Oh, that goes nowhere. Okay. Yeah. You know, this seems fitting. I'm just going to play one of the trailers, A Message from Space. So that's what I'll end it with. If anybody has any final things they want to say, now's the time to do it. So. Anybody any questions for Brayton? I'll save the post show. No, there's not much to do. It's late on Christmas, and I kind of want to call it quits. I'm tired. I'm hurting. Yeah, I'll just do this. It's the cheap way out, but it's better than nothing. And I like I said, I don't want to deal with any like copyright stupidity going on with the songs. Hello, what is this? Why is every song? Look, yeah, that is weird. All right, hold on. Oh, okay, I see what's going on here. All right, hold on. Yeah, this post show sucks. I'm gonna call it quits. It's Christmas. I'm going home early. But no. Thank you everybody for joining us. Brayton, if you want to talk after the show, go ahead. Goji Shay, I'll keep on contact with you. Arg, are you having a good Christmas, Brayton? Okay, we'll just answer this one question. Goji asks Brayton, are you having a good Christmas, Brayton? And we'll see what Brayton says, and I'll just cut to the song. I'll just cut to the damn trailers. When you think about it, setting a Godzilla monster of monsters is insane. Imagine a big manga artist working on it. Yeah. Random. That was a question. That was a comment from Random G Fan. Worst ever. Okay. All right. On that note, I think we're just gonna end it. Yeah, I'm just gonna play this Japanese trailer for Message from Space, and we'll just call it quits. So, but no. Honestly though, this has not been a great year. Even if you think it's been a great year, and I wish only the best for all of you guys in the future. Both to anybody who revisits this little live stream later, and to anybody who's just out there in general, because I know next month is going to be really rough for a lot of people, regardless if you think it's getting better or not. And I do hope I do hope things do honestly get a lot better, but we'll see what happens. It's a long road. Every time you think something is, it doesn't get, and holidays always get in the way either. Like I said, this is not only the time of giving, but also the time of taking from landlords and other horrible things happening, where it's hard to save money and to keep it, and then all hell breaks loose. But whatever happens, thank you for joining me tonight, and let's hope for a better tomorrow, because in the world of fiction and escapism, we can still have dreams of saving the day from nefarious villains, and hopefully find a better tomorrow. And that's all I'm going to say, because I'm not very good at being poetic. Okay, I'll talk to you guys later.
Hey, get me another drink.
Yes, sir.
Hey, babe, you better watch your voice box, or I'm gonna...
記録早いとこその女を自分のものにしておしまい。
Out on the third planet closest to the sun, there's a special celebration, and it sounds quite fun. A jolly old fellow brings toys to everyone on a holiday they call Christmas. Now I'm not gonna lie, it makes no sense to me, but here's what Earthlings told me about this Christmas mystery. 1, 2, 3, 4. Santa is a furry freak with the big superpowers. He flies to every human home in under 14 hours. He's a master burglar, a pro at picking locks. If you don't leave milk and cookies out, he will put dung in your socks. If you act nicely through the night and don't jump on your bed, Santa comes with sugar plums and hurls them at your head. But if you're on his naughty list, he shoots missiles at your toes. He might just roast your chestnuts with his powerful flamethrower. Rain, 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 rain. Dear, 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 dear. I don't know what Christmas is, but Christmas time is here. Santa's eyes.